say nay. For example, let's just use F1. The motion, Austin moves to approve, Schaefer seconds. And then we have Baker, Carney vote yay, Mize votes nay. That leaves it a little vague, I think, for Austin and Schaefer. I've been known to move or second a motion before and then vote against it. So it would, most people would imply that that would not be the case. But if you would, for these and for the future, make sure everyone's stated under the vote. Thank you.
Thanks, Carl. Anybody else have amendments for the August minutes? Any other changes? If not, then I'll invite a motion to approve the minutes subject to the corrections brought by our director and by Carl Schaefer.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Carl. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
The minutes are unanimously adopted. So we come now to old business. PB 23-173, the Reeves Farm conditional rezoning request, on which we took a presentation back in August. And Director Cahoon Tingle is here to bring us up to date.
Well, exceptionally good news. We have a lot clearer presentation this time out. As you all may recall, there was a request, still is, a Reeves Farm Pittsburgh LLC for conditional zoning on parcels 6737, 6738, 70127, 74724, residential agriculture and residential agriculture 2 acres to neighborhood mixed use center conditional zoning or NMUCCZ mouthful for all permitted uses by right and special use permits within this particular zoning. I want to point out to you all the recommendation. I'm going to slightly amend it a little bit here, but what we're looking for this evening is a recommendation to either approve or to deny. We're trying to get away from the idea of tabling. There will be a few items this evening that are going to be treated more as a workshop type item. So our meeting this evening is going to have a slightly different format. I did want to discuss a little bit about the recommendation. There is still in your packet on page, 3, there is a consistency statement for approval. I did want to point out, though, in terms of the application and in terms of which I'm going to allow them to give their presentation in just a minute. If you drop over to the Exhibit B, which is on page 8 and the numbered items in this particular section. I did want to point out that there's been a recommendation from the town manager and from our department that the petitioners need to provide. I'm sorry. Thank you so much. I'm sorry. I'm hearing an echo in my own head. There's not a lot in there. I'd like to have an echo. So anyway, what I was going to say is there's going to be a little bit of an expansion on the discussion of open space this evening. I've asked Mr. Jody to give you all a little information about that. Certainly the town's preference would be for them to annex all in one fell swoop, all 500 acres. If not, that's a point that definitely need negotiation. I also wanted to point out that the town is very desirous of having if you go to number 7 on page 9, affordable housing. There's a formula here that is straight out of our affordable housing section of our UDO, but the desire is more something along the lines of the 5% at 60 to 80% of AMI. Aside from that, and a request to add at least one use to one of the use tables, the first one being on page 13. It doesn't show up, but we definitely would like to see a hospital added in that particular character district, which is the CD4B. There's a couple of these that I will probably be taking the podium to go in and make some other changes that have been recommended by the town manager and myself in the meeting today. Certainly going to say that I would like you all to see their presentation, because certainly when you get over here to pages 13 on out instead of a very, very confusing table of uses that was really kind of difficult to interpret. You're going to see that in each character district, there is a list of every single thing that is potentially possible in that district, which I believe will lead to a little bit clearer understanding of what's in front of you this evening. That's at least my hope. And at this point, I'm going to turn the floor over to the petitioners.
Mr. Chairman, Planning Board members, my name is Patrick Bradshaw. I practice law at 128 Hillsborough Street in Pittsboro, and I'm here tonight representing Reeves Farm Pittsboro LLC, which is requesting approval of a neighborhood mixed-use center conditional zoning district on approximately 500 acres on West Street or US 64 Business West. This request is consistent with the town's land use plan, which marks this property for a mixed-use node, traditional neighborhood infill, residential, natural resource conservation, and open space. This request has been fully and thoroughly vetted by the town of Pittsboro. The applicant held 2 community meetings. This is the 3rd meeting of this planning board at which the application has been considered, and there was an additional month for consideration when the planning board didn't meet in September. Jody Lightoff, the lead planner for the project, and the planning director, and sometimes the town manager, have had multiple meetings to discuss the procedure and the standards and conditions for the application. And we appreciate the director and the manager making themselves for that work. As a result of all of that, there's a fulsome set of conditions attached to the approval in a format that was requested by the planning director. In response to questions and suggestions that have been raised by members of the public, by members of this board, and by the town staff, as well as enhancements that the applicant itself has generated, the applicant has made several important improvements to the proposal. These include the fact, as the planning director alluded to, that the land uses that are permitted in each character district are now specifically listed. And a number of those are identified as special uses, which means they would require a special use permit from the town, which would be another whole pass at review and approval by the town's board. We've also identified a view shed corridor and open space to be preserved along West Street, totaling approximately 22.5 acres. Now, I believe some question has come up about that as to the applicant's intention with regard to overall recreation and open space requirements. We understand and always intended that we would comply with the requirements of the UDO for total open space. The point of identifying that stretch along 64 was just to point out and commit to the fact that that area, which is important to the appearance of the project and to the entryway to the town from the west, will be preserved as open space. The applicant has proposed a condition that will provide up to 7.5% of the dwelling units in the community as either affordable housing or housing for persons with disabilities. The applicant has committed to provide a traffic impact analysis before seeking site plan or final subdivision approvals, and to voluntarily request annexation of portions of the property as site plan, subdivision, and special use permit approvals are sought, which is exactly what the UDO calls for. Finally, the applicant has agreed that it will not propose a street connection from this new neighborhood to Reeves Road on the west side unless that connection is specifically required by the town of Pittsboro or by some other governmental agency with jurisdiction. I hope you can see from what I've laid out here that this applicant has made a sincere and substantial effort to respond to all of the questions and suggestions that have been made by the public, by the town staff, and by members of this board. And there will be ongoing opportunities for additional town review and input as specific development plans are generated and approval of those is requested. So at the conclusion of this discussion tonight, I would respectfully request that you recommend approval of this rezoning to the Board of Commissioners. At this point, I would like to yield, Mr. Chairman, if that's acceptable, to Jody Lightoff, who's the lead planner, who'd like to point out a few specific things.
Yeah, thanks, Counselor.
That's fine. My name is Jody Lightoff, live at 481 Bennett Mountain Trace. I just wanted to, I think I have just a couple of quick points to Patrick's wonderful presentation of the pathway and all the work that we've done behind the scenes to make sure that we're in alignment with the goals and visions of the town. You know, I think just going through a quick list of all the guiding documents that we have been through in crafting this community plan and something that we feel will be additive to the town of Pittsboro. But we, you know, definitely the zoning map amendment review standards, staff found every review standard favorable. The town planning staff favorable report. We're in alignment with the land use plan, the unified development ordinance, the town of Pittsboro's bicycle and pedestrian plan that's been out there. That's been incorporated into this project. The town of Pittsboro Parks and Recreation System Master Plan was a guiding document into this document. And then the Partners for Green Growth, the grant that was given after the land use plan by the Carolina Wildlife Resource Commission goes to the conservation design in the area that's always in question on the west side and the idea of conservation subdivision design. And so that's been incorporated into our vision and our plans as well. The next thing I want to talk about is we did talk with Cy. He was wonderful, went through all the historic resources. And there's none out there that he was aware of, but we'll continue those dialogues, and he was wonderful and had a great conversation. So we also met with Leah Dyson, who is the Housing and Community Development Officer for Chatham County, and spent 2 hours with her and the Assistant County Manager for Chatham County because they were interested in how we incorporate affordable housing into our project. So that was it was wonderful because they reached out to us. It was a great meeting, 2-hour meeting to talk about affordable housing and the need. And when we talk about affordable housing, one of our presentations from day one is our goal with Reeves Farm is to provide housing for all life stages and all individuals. Supportive housing. I've been a part of the tiny home village up at Penny Lane Farm and working with Tava. And what an incredible program. And this kind of ideal of housing needs for all people. So that's where that kind of ideal of supportive housing comes from. And supportive housing is tied to human and social services. It's not a run around to get affordable. It's actually addressing housing instability. And we believe in that. And that is something that the owners of Reeves Farm are very committed to. So with that, again, the open space. Wanted to really define that. We've talked about that preservation, but we wanted to code it and put it in our package to say, this is what we stand by. This will always be a part of that. And it ties into some of the conditions and waivers because we want the historic view shed and we didn't want to have to plant it. And we could, you know, handle it the way we thought aesthetically pleasing and value that. So beyond that, we will meet all the other recreation requirements. You know, we've got plenty of open space. If you look at and as we talk, I think he brought up a comment about the environmental framework, right? So if you look at the stream channels, we've got our 30 and our 20-foot buffer and 50-foot buffer. But for the majority of Robertson Creek coming north and south, it ranges from 120 to 400 feet. So we've got the extra protection just by the nature of the floodplain and the distances away from the creek bed. So we didn't feel like we needed a self-imposed after 400 feet, another 50 feet. And I think it's the way the map's coded and the environmental framework map that there's a disconnect between where the riparian buffers are and the actual preservation of open space, which is 300 feet, in some cases beyond those riparian buffers. So I think that's really hit all the high levels. One of the things that on page 13, we did, you know, one of the questions was the idea of making sure that we have hospital coded into the project and the land uses. And it is at the bottom of the first column on page 13 of our packet under institutional uses, healthcare. Hospital is listed there. Everything in white is straight out of the MUNC. I mean, straight out of the UDO. It is permitted in the MUC. The ones in yellow are the ads, and if they have an S, that's a special use permit that we would need to come back to you for. So, you know, we, you know, really took the time to kind of labor through all of these. There was a question for, you know, we've been working with the planning director and the town manager. You know, on the second column at the bottom, there's an idea of commercial uses. that are permitted by right under the under the zoning category that we're asking for, they would like to kind of parse through those and maybe eliminate a couple of those. And we're happy to work with the planning staff and the town staff to hit the right ones and make sure that this development meets the vision. So with that, unless you have any questions, I'm happy to conclude.
Board members, any questions or
I have a question. On page 19, we had discussed, first of all, thank you for all the updates and all the work that y'all have put into this. We had discussed the side lots.
Yep.
Listed on page 19 for character district 3A, the single family detached lots. There's a side lot width of 3 feet in there, 4 feet in there.
Yes.
Just wondering what the conclusion was there.
Well, a couple things. One thing that the last time we presented to you, right? We asked for the reduced setbacks and we talked to the town manager and the planning staff regarding the side yard setbacks. Another development came in 2 cases later after we presented. You guys approved 3-foot setbacks without any discussion at all. So we kind of took that and to our learnings and said, God, we don't want 3 foot for every lot size, right? So let's find a way that we can code this. So as the houses grow bigger, the side yards get bigger and you have that variation within the community. And so I still go back to, I went to the candidates forum Tuesday night for the Board of Commissioners, right? And it talked about infrastructure, housing, and kind of development patterns. And the central theme was the need for attainable, affordable housing and how do you get that? And we believe that setback is the first step because of the land use and the valuation. And so we still believe the 3-foot side yard setback meets the fire code. We've had multiple discussions with Billy Judson, the fire marshal. He's fine with it. I live in a community that has 3-foot side yard setbacks. So we kind of did our research and through all the horse trading with planning staff and town manager, we all came to conclusion that this was appropriate for the type of community that we hope to present to town of Pittsboro.
thank you. Anything further from the board?
I do have one question. The minimum lot and area and width. Why do we not have a minimum on those?
Oh, and then non-resident is a commercial area.
In residential.
So residential you do. So that's in the top box, it's the non-residential uses where the zeros are.
I'm seeing it, sorry. If you go down to residential uses, the not available or not applicable.
Oh, that came straight from the zoning code.
Okay.
So when you see an NA, that was not changing anything and we're living with what was prescribed in the original zoning code.
Mr. Director?
Yeah. Okay, so let me say, as you just mentioned, I feel like there's a little tiny bit of work to do between now and the Board of Commissioners meeting, but I would like to recommend a vote of conditional approval based on us getting together and hammering out a few minor details or very minor changes to the actual majority of the items that we're hoping, and I'm sorry, I want to address the setback issue in just a second because I'm just going to go there first. How about we go there first? Because I have, attention span of a gnat. So let's see how we're doing. So basically the willingness to provide the affordable housing is the key to getting reduced side setback.
Got it. Okay.
If that wasn't clear, I wanted to make sure I made it clear that the two go hand in hand. If he were to come in and say, we literally 500 acres, no affordable, then you would be over with the setbacks that come with the property. That help a little bit?
That's very helpful. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Now, let me just throw something out. We're doing a little bit of continued horse trading on CD 4B, which I believe is the character district that is the most urbanized, and more particularly, it's the area closest to the building we're in and some other areas. It's on page 13. Sometimes I talk about like that and I'm not waiting for other people. Page 13, no, one more. There you go. Okay, so this list right here is actually where the horse trading remains to be done. There was some concern, and I know it's straight out of the ordinance, but on the next page under institutional uses, correctional facility, just weren't real sure that we wanted that included. So we would like the opportunity between this meeting and the Board of Commissioners meeting to continue to speak to the team that's applying. But so that's why I would be recommending conditional approval. But you would still be making a vote on that. And assuming it's positive, I would definitely want you all to adopt the third page of the presentation, the consistency statement for approval.
Thank you.
Do you all have any questions for me?
Anything further for the director? If not, I'll call for a motion to either conditionally approve.
Excuse me,
Yeah, go ahead, Carl.
may I have some questions of the applicant, please?
Ooh.
Thank you. Is that okay?
Oh, absolutely.
The road, I'm on page 12.
Well, look at us.
Yeah. Very good. Road in the northwest corner.
Yes.
When I rode out there again today, where will that come out? Because I don't see any access from the subdivision road to the west.
So the one that meets Robertson Creek Road, just about, I think it's like 2,000 feet down from Highway 64. Is that the one you're talking about?
It's the one Steve's pointing at right there.
It's the green article. I can zoom in too.
Oh, no, I see it.
Left corner.
Yeah, so it would just tee into Robertson Creek Road, and at the time of site plan, we'd work through the grades. So if you drove out there right before the bend, you can see the creek coming through. And so it's a pretty, if I remember it correctly, it was a fairly even grade right there.
Okay. I'm understanding that better now. I erroneously looked at
Sure, Carl.
to the left as the road, so that was, yeah, that's mine.
And we've talked to the individuals that have the parcel across the street and understand that they're going through some site plan applications, subdivision for that as well. So, part of that is coordinating with their entrances and make sure that if they end up developing that and adding a few more houses on that parcel across the street, we tie those entrances.
The object, I'm sitting here moving my cursor, but I'm not Steve. The object that looks like maybe an amphitheater to me, in the west central quadrant.
Yep. A little green space there in the west central.
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, that is 3B. What does that
That allows us to do
signify?
that little open space there is the ideal that, and in the heart of each neighborhood, and again, we set this up within 5-minute walks, right? So there's 4 5-minute walks across this property. And one of the bases of design and the principles that we've applied to this project is that there's open space within a 5-minute walk or a civic node or walkable retail. And so our principles wanted a open space in each neighborhood that people could walk to and gather in. And so is that the final form at site plan? I'm not sure, Carl, but it's the idea that we've reserved that acreage and that amount of open space to help define that neighborhood. And the reason why we put the little bit darker shade is the idea of people should be able, you put density where the open space is, because it's always that trade-off. So if you're buying a smaller lot, you want to be able to get out and walk your dog or go meet your neighbors or have that available open space. And so again, another principle of ours is density near open space. And I think we've accomplished that really well within this plan.
Admittedly, I didn't read every word in this document, but
And
do we have, I'm asking this of staff and anyone on the board that has reviewed this. Do we have any control over the outdoor entertainment facility that I was hung up on last time in terms of its location? And if we do, how is that stated?
Well, within a conditional rezoning, no, but certainly when subdivision plans come through, they come through this board in addition to going through staff, and then they go, I'm speaking of preliminary plat. It goes, the path is our staff, then you all, then the Board of Commissioners, then construction drawing, then back to our staff when they're ready for final plat, and then it's settled at the staff level. So yes, you would have, I don't know that I would necessarily call it say, but I'm certainly going to tell you, you'll have an opportunity to review it as part of an overall subdivision plan, as you would any other subdivision plan that comes in front of this board.
All right, thank you.
And,
Can I ask one question?
Yeah, go ahead, Ray.
He had an and.
Oh, okay.
and Carl, just to be clear, on page 13, under commercial uses midway, middle column, you have the outdoor theater, private recreation and entertainment facility, indoor and outdoor. And a special use permit for the outdoor facility. And then in 4A, we carry the same private recreation, entertainment facility, indoor and outdoor, outdoor being not a special use, it's just we.
Yeah.
So it's only in those two areas that you could have those venues. And again, working with the Chatham County Agriculture and Conference Center in their master plan, they have shown a fairly large amphitheater. So I don't think we would do anything other than support their mission. Currently, I don't see this vision in the plan. We haven't drawn one in the plan. We haven't talked about one. The indoor facility is a by right. The outdoor, we just didn't know what form that could take. And, again, part of this is creating places for people and the excitement and, whether it's a pickleball center that comes, but driving people to support the retail and support the community, but make it all walkable. So there's always something for everyone in it.
And of course, I think at the last meeting we had a couple months ago, I had asked a question about the purpose of additional land.
And I said, yes,
And
nobody's out to us yet.
oh, I got one. Thanks, Bill.
Okay, if you go back to page, you mind scrolling back to.
How that plan to tie into if you happen to purchase it.
So we've talked to, what we've tried to do is, I'm sorry, page 12.
Thank you, Steve.
This is probably going to affect people that are, I think, bring it up.
Right. Well, and I think as any stewards of the land and presenting a new community to the town of Pittsboro, you're looking for connectivity. Again, it goes back to the principles of development that we don't want to be a standalone, gated, singular. No one else is allowed in this community. We want to be porous. We want to make as many connections, especially as the town grows. The town has enough dead end streets already. I think if you count them, there's like 18 dead end streets. I mean, it limits the ability for traffic patterns to get around the circle, and then the circle clogs up and the trucks come through and then nobody's happy. So our idea is really porosity. We want to connect as often as somebody would allow us, right? And there's benefits to making that connection. And again, we want to be seen as part of Pittsboro. We don't want to be anything other than just another neighborhood within Pittsboro that connects to other people. And everybody has the opportunity to drive through our community and reach the services being provided.
Fine. So what would that land be on that man?
So we've had particularly on this lot. It's here.
I think I'm going to buy it.
There's 80 acres in the Swimberley tract.
Mhm.
And so you can see that connection. There's a couple of undeveloped parcels, again, making those suggestions that if somebody wants to connect to us, we want to make sure that we have the framework in place for that connection.
So that I understand it correctly, it's not only the possibility you purchasing land, but other developers
Correct.
to be able to tie into your land.
Yeah, it's a holistic thought about what is a regional traffic pattern and how do we make traffic flow and ease of access for everybody.
All right.
And make those connections. So again, we're part of Pittsboro and there's a holistic view to kind of us. In my terminology, and town staff's gonna hate this, but in a small area plan ideal, where are the best connections to make and what is a good.
My point, there's other people that own land around there. There's other residents, and I think they have the right to know what the possibilities can be in the future. And I wanted to make sure we got it in the minutes.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
I was, yeah, esoteric planner speak.
That's fine. The more I learn, the better off I am. Thank you.
I would like for us to, you know, as much as I know they hate to hear it, and I almost hate to say it, but I would like for us to still think about the 4B area north of 64 business,
Mhm.
as it is immediately adjacent to RA land, the north and the west.
Mhm.
About the consequences of all the uses that are in that table that they've presented and the impacts on the neighbors to the north and west, and to see some concessions or some adjustments to that area.
Are we on page 13? Carl?
We're on page 13. Yes, this place.
And
13.
Carl,
Yeah, there's a
may I touch?
rectangular parcel
To the north of 64.
to the north of 64 that is in the 4B district. And then a couple other things that I can share with staff, you know, for one example, I think an outdoor dog kennel needs to be a special use permit in a setting like this. Right now, it is a use by right. There's a couple other nominal things like that, really, but yeah, my big concern is that 4B district and its adjacency to other RA land.
Yeah, so if I may just address that to the direct north, right? So sharing that northern property line from Robertson Creek over to George Terrell's house, right?
Mhm.
If you look at that parcel and the ownership going forward, there's 200 acres owned by a singular family. And, you know, this is their primary access if you look at it without having to cross Robertson Creek with, you know, 4-lane divided bridge road and that impact into Robertson Creek. So again, back to that holistic view of the west side of Pittsburgh, that connection can easily be made and join into that 200 plus minus acres that the Richardson family owns. And so that was the idea. We've met with them. We've worked through them. They've come to both community meetings. We've met with them independently several times. And so the idea that, again, that center kind of key mixed use node that is shown on the land use plan is replicated on this map with the idea that we've met with, talked with, engaged with in community. George Terrell, I know well, fished with him a bunch, hang out with him a bunch. So
Also, it bears mention that maybe I was being a little bit too vague and a little bit less clear. The specific items that I envision us discussing with this gentleman and his team are the matter of the outdoor dog kennel, the matter, I'm literally reading from notes meeting this afternoon with the town manager. Industrial use being mini storage. Also wanted to discuss all of the commercial uses that you see at the bottom of your screen there, including retail sales, professional services, including automobile retail, repair, car wash, detailing, capping and retreading tires. Everything you see right there is on the list of items that I was sort of gently suggesting that we were going to be negotiating between now and then. And if you look on the list of institutional uses, the lone item that has a red stripe through on my copy is Correctional Institute. Specifically, nobody wants a prison, high or low security next to their house. So the reason I ask that we have time to have this discussion between now and then is that at least in spirit, the planning board would be approving that we move forward with this project. On the other hand, bearing in mind, this is, and you're getting ready to see another one in a few minutes, this is a bubble map. We're not going to be presenting layouts of subdivisions, because if you put a layout of subdivision into a conditional zoning, you are now bound to that layout. The only way to change the layout when you go to subdivide the property is to come back to you all and get an additional or separate approval. I'm trying to avoid that. So first and foremost, I'm asking for a conditional so that we can work on these 2 pages, 13 and 14, the specific items the manager brought to my attention this afternoon. I'm also asking that we move it forward, as I do not wish to have it keep ping-ponging back and being on the agenda of this group, because I feel that we're rapidly approaching the point where we are grinding it into the ground. And as for the comments about Wimberley, I don't want to give away anybody's personal business, but we have a pre-application meeting for that site this week. So someone is anticipating development below there, which would make that stub out. Steve, can you go back to the map on page, I'm gonna call it 12, just because my memory's going. If you take a look at that stub out, yeah, over there. Yes, sir. Bingo. That's the property we're talking about this week on Thursday with potential applicant who has some questions and is having their pre-application meeting with the entire staff of the town. So with that in mind, importance of that stub out goes from, gosh, wouldn't it be interesting if there was a road in here that could stub out, to there's a strong likelihood that land will not be added to this development, but will be in a neighboring, potentially developing somewhere along the same trajectory as this one. But the whole purpose of a stub out is future growth. Okay. I can get off my soapbox now, but I'm simply pointing out that yes, we've thought of that. And yes, it's super important to stub out. And yes, this list, because I made my suggestions in the hall, our conversation was, do you mind if we get together after this and hash out the 3 or 4 things that I feel should go or should become a special use at the very least?
And again, Carl, a lot of this is land mass. We just don't have the land to, we took the list straight from the zoning code, right? What the UDO allows, everything in white is what the UDO says you can place here. We're dealing with a very finite 20 acres. We can't put everything in there, and it's going to be highest best use. And then it's parking, and at a 0.25 FAR, where do we end up and how many square footage is that? And so there is a little bit of, meeting the market, if you will. And, are we going to be able, if we create the right destination and what uses will be appropriate.
And if you all will indulge me to make one more comment, this is the rezoning, which is the first step before you start subdividing and before you start development, which will at the very least come in here in waves. It's not going to be 500 acres under development all simultaneously. We've left that ambition to a different project.
Question for you, Randy.
Dive in.
On some of these tables,
Yes, sir.
there's some yellow verbiage.
Yes, sir.
Many of them have an S behind them, but some don't.
Yes.
Is yellow supposed to imply that they're all special use or not?
Now, I believe it's new additions.
Okay.
If it has a S in the paren, then it's a special use.
Okay.
So we tried to make that known as what we're requesting versus what we feel like should be a special use and would come back to you for that.
I would certainly like to draw attention to the fact this is a much easier chart to read than what was provided previously. And that's not a slam on anything. That's just simply an acknowledgement of the hard work that went into this after we met the last time and before we came back. I was very clear that I wanted a chart that I could read to anybody and they could say that color right there equals this use here as a potential. We're not bringing all these things here. This isn't a recipe for a cake. Everybody in this room is a developer and everybody in here has an equal access to that land. What can go there appropriately? But this is a list of potential uses, not future uses necessarily.
And, just stepping back. With a rezoning of 500 acres to one zoning category, that map would have been one color, right? And we could have come in and said, well, we just want this one color, this mustard color over the entire site. But we said, no, the town has worked so hard on the land use plan, has defined what the land uses are. Let's mirror that. Let's really prescribe character districts that would end up matching the land use plan and then code the actual land uses within those character districts. So this was that step further to say, you know, we've got a vision of this plan and these are how the uses need to interact and what we really feel is right for this piece of property.
So in terms of the consistency statement, because it is required by law, but I want to throw in something else. Again, new in this job, I'm not new to planning, I'm new in this job. You're tasked with a couple of things. First, generally agreeing that a lot of this or some of this or most of this is a pretty good idea. We're going over here to, I'm sorry, Steve, can you just locate that page? Which is right after that page. It's like third page of my report. I'm not being nice to my assistant and I'm so sorry.
I'm taking my time.
That's called passive aggressive, folks. Right there. Here we go.
There we are.
So I want to act as our therapist. That's passive aggression, just so you know. Thank you, Steve. Gold star. So essentially what you all are tasked with in the general statutes is a combination of two items. First, to listen to the request for rezoning and evaluate it on its own merits. The other issue here, and the reason why the state general statutes requires it, is you have to issue a statement about how well or how poorly this project matches the land use plan that was adopted this year in April. So this statement isn't, I love 1,000 uses of land and I want to see every one of them in the town of Pittsburgh. This statement is the plan we spent a year putting together. These folks, when they took it out for a test drive, were able to meet a large number of things that were found in the land use plan adopted by this body and by the town's governing board. Okay. So that's what we're looking for here tonight. I'm looking for conditional approval to give us a chance to hammer out a few items on those two charts. To put a few S's where there might need to be some S's or some red lines where there need to be some red lines. Our next meeting about this will be the 13th of November in front of the Board of Commissioners for that public hearing we're going to have. And that public hearing, what comes out at the end of that is what is binding to this property. Unless they decide to go rezone entirely again. I'm not recommending it. I'm simply making your options something you're aware of. What I was going to say is in the UDO, there is a neighborhood mixed use center. And this is a conditional version of it where you take the base district and then you make some conditions under which you can approve this. A great example was the side setbacks would have normally been about 7.5 feet. They're recommending 3 in exchange for bringing in a certain percentage, roughly 5%, assuming I win the arm wrestling, as affordable. And if you do the 5% affordable at that AMI, in exchange for that, you get this. So it's a negotiation. Okay.
Yep, it's been very clear. Thank you.
Good news.
Thank you, Director. Any further questions? Further comments from the board? If not, I'll entertain a motion for conditional approval or a motion for a denial.
I'll make a motion to conditionally approve.
Thank you. Second. Thank you, Bill. All in favor, aye? Aye.
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 All opposed?
Aye.
For the record, if you don't mind,
Director.
just names so that
All right.
that's the record.
Into the record, Charity Mize, yay. Ray Carney, yay. Mr. Schaefer, yay.
No,
Oh,
I'm a nay.
Oh, you're a nay. I beg your pardon. I misheard. All right. A nay from Mr. Schaefer, a yay from Mr. Baker. And our newest member, yay or nay?
I believe I
go ahead.
have a vote. I vote yay.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
So conditional approval of PB 23-173, the Reeves Farm rezoning request. And it goes forward now to the Town Board of Commissioners. We have a second item of old business carried over from August, and that is the Turkey Creek
Sir,
zoning request. And
if you don't mind, I'd kind of like to start you all at the beginning. Can you pull up? Yeah. Okay, so what I wanted to point out to you all is this. Yes, you all, you actually ruled on this previously, but let me just throw something in. We do have this request. Staff reviewed what was approved previously. And the particular problem that myself in particular was having with this particular project is that it was not a particularly good match for the land use plan. It's a little bit surprising, as this particular project had been put on hold for a full year related to waiting for the arrival of the new land use plan. So when someone, okay, come up and join me. When a petitioner has a series of meetings with staff, as this particular group of petitioners did, and they go in and they do a complete redesign for what was previously with you all for what it currently appears in this map, which is, I don't know, it's right after the consistency statement, it's about 4th page. We have a redesign. Yeah, no, keep going the other way. One more. Yes, whoa.
Oh, man.
Okay, so this is a completely different map than you all saw last time. This is a very, very consistent with the land use plan project, and it is the product of a great number of negotiations on staff's part. The petitioner was extremely helpful in getting us here. There are three very minor tweaks to the conditions that staff would like to add later. But I'm sorry. Laura, can you come? Are you doing? Yes. Okay, so I'd like to reenter. Is she? I'm sorry.
Yes, yes.
Who's present? I'm saying, who's present? Oh, okay. I'm sorry. She's nominated. I'm going to turn the floor over. They're going to represent, and he is going to take you through a list of the changes and going to talk to you all a bit about what's going on. Particularly, I do want you all to take note of the fact we have taken out the layout because it was my professional opinion that it would harm the project. You're on.
Sure. You can just leave this one up, but that'll be useful. And good evening, Chair Braun, Vice Chair Schaefer, members of the Pittsburgh Planning Board. I am Neil Ghosh with the Morningstar Law Group at 700 West Main Street in Durham, and I'm representing the applicant for this item, which is Greenhawk Development. We have Jeremy Medlin and Ben Glass from Greenhawk, as well as Ms. Laura Holloman, Ms. Kate Murdoch, and Tyler Probst, Mr. Tyler Probst with McAdams. Before we start this hearing, I wanted to check with board member, the newest board member, Corey. Because my understanding is you work with McAdams.
I do.
I just want to put that out there and see if there's any need to have him recuse himself from this hearing.
You want to share a little bit about your.
Do you have a financial interest in this development?
I have no financial interest in this development. I have
Been assigned to work on it?
not done any work on this in particular.
I just want to put it out for the.
Yeah, no, it's much appreciated. And I think Mr. Messick, in this case, our newest member need not recuse himself since he has no financial or assigned role in this development.
McAdams is earning money from this particular project, and
Then he should recuse. All right, we'll keep it clean. Thank you.
So as I just for the record, as I understand it, then you would recuse yourself.
He's going to recuse. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
And I don't know how this board does that. You would take a motion on that or?
I would just like the record to reflect.
Yeah, the record reflects that Corey has.
Perfect. Sorry about that. So as was mentioned, you might recall that we were here in August on the same project and you all actually recommended approval on it. And so naturally, you're probably wondering, why are we back? Why did we make changes? Well, I want to thank staff for working with us on this. And as you know, this project was being processed at a time where there were some significant changes to personnel, long-range plans, and processes. Following the last planning board meeting, we were informed by Director Coon-Tingle, Town Manager Franklin, and also Commissioner Kyle Schiff about concerns that the plan does not comport with the newly adopted comprehensive plan as much as it could. And they were apologetic about having to bring that up at such a late point in the process, but we were appreciative of them, letting us know when they did. And it allowed us time to rise to the occasion, make changes so that a very good project becomes a better fit with the newly adopted comprehensive plan. One of the changes has already been mentioned by Director Cahoon Tingle, which is we went from more of a lot layout type of approach, building layout type of approach with the concept plan here to a bubble plan. And that is one of the changes in processes that we understand the director to be going that direction on all new projects. Now, the mix of uses in this project is actually very similar to what you all recommended approval on previously. What has changed is their locations and I guess their amount. There are more opportunities for non-residential development in this project. The west side of the project at the bubble stage looks very similar to what was planned before. There's a mix of residential and non-residential on that side. Previously, the eastern side mostly was single-family detached residential with commercial opportunities. Now, on the eastern side, there is no residential on that side, and instead we have more commercial opportunities along Mount Zion and more light industrial west of the stream on that side. This shift in uses much more closely matches the new comprehensive plan, which takes into account the commercial node and mixed use center expected to be developed just northeast of this site, I believe, with Chatham Park. We also have added some text commitments to bolster our previous commitments with respect to open space and greenway infrastructure, of which we will have plenty of both. And we've also added more conditions in the text commitments just to explain what the uses are, what's prohibited where. For example, there are more uses being allowed in the eastern light industrial section than there are in the western light industrial section. And that's due to the proximity to the residential uses there. Aside from that, so we've gotten rid of the single family detached homes, and the mix of homes now would be attached single family and townhomes, and they would all be in that western portion, that kind of yellow, I guess, section. We still have kept that 300-foot separation from existing Potterstone Village. And we still have the non-residential light industrial component up towards Concord Pittsburgh Road. There's significantly more commercial opportunity along Mount Zion, and more industrial on that side. I mean, we got rid of residential and essentially replaced it with non-residential on the eastern side. I just thought it would be useful to kind of highlight how this project has evolved over time. You may recall that this project was also introduced previously more than a year ago. So at that time, there were roughly 300 residential units, and that still remains here. But at that time, there was roughly 180,000 square feet of light industrial. And about 2 months ago, we had a different side up. There was about 225,000 square feet of that same use. And in this mix, we've got a lot more of it, 405,000 square feet of light industrial opportunities here. And on the commercial side, so that red district, I believe a year ago, there was about 20,000 square feet of commercial, pure commercial. About 2 months ago, about 42,000 square feet, and that has been increased in this configuration to around 120,000 square feet of commercial opportunities there. So those are the changes with this project. And again, I would think in particular, Director Coon-Tingle and the town manager, Mr. Franklin, and Commissioner Kyle Shipp who worked with us through this process to bring this plan into better conformance with the comprehensive plan. I mean, I think it was a great project before, and obviously it's all better now that it is more consistent with the comprehensive plan. Happy to answer any questions you may have. Nothing about the development is significantly changing other than those mixed uses and their orientation. So the questions we answered last time, I imagine the answers will be very similar.
Director.
All right. So a little bit similar to last time, town manager and I had a lengthy meeting, and I did convey most of this information to the petitioners. He has some concerns about college, university, or vocational school being uses by right just based on parking. It would have to be more about where it is. So obviously, special use permit for that or nothing at all, but I feel like that's a detail we'd have to work out at a later time. So I am looking for conditional. Also, we had a discussion about the point, item number 7 on the list of uses, which I'm sorry is in the, I think actually, it was the other way. Below that. Yeah, there you go. This is the list. There you go. Very good. Yay. Okay. All right. Number 7 on here points out that prior to the issuance of the 250th CO within this district, a minimum of 10,000 square feet of non-residential space shall be constructed. Manager is leaning in the direction of asking for a little bit sooner in the process, but again, conditional allows us to go forward with this conditional approval with the idea that we're going to work these details out. Also, number 9, vinyl siding as a primary building material should not be permitted. We just simply are trying to eliminate that, as hardy plank covers almost every single possibility, including cedar shake. And also a 14th one, which is not on here, is that Mr. Medlin and I had a discussion that began on Friday. And I believe we're going to continue this discussion moving forward, but there's going to be a fee in lieu component for the park land that is going to be open. I'm sorry, it's going to be a publicly maintained amenity, fee in lieu, as opposed to them just going in and building a park. That's more the desire of our current board. So with that in mind, I want to draw your attention in a very enthusiastic way toward right before this, the consistency statement. I did take the original one and I did basically rewrite it. I did want to point out to you that the approval of this particular project, or the conditional approval, allowing us some time to work out a few minor details, it is fully consistent with the land use plan. It has been designated for traditional neighborhood infill and employment mixed use. And I believe that this map that they supplied very, very much aligns with that. Rezoning request is reasonable. It's in the public interest and it will benefit the surrounding community, considering the site is of a sufficient size to allow for proper screening and buffers to adjacent properties. Those uses will support future residential and mixed use development. Properties are located off of Moncure Pittsboro Road, providing practicality, easy access, and reduced travel times to the community. I do want to draw your attention to the fact that the VinFast plant is on this. So that's not an accidental reference. That's a deliberate reference to providing some workforce and some affordability for those folks. So at this point, I am done with my presentation. I'm simply asking for a conditional approval to give us a little bit of time to work on those details between now and the 13th of November, when it's going up for public hearing. And I would like this consistency statement approved, if you do not mind.
Further questions or board comments? Right.
Is the traffic flow change? It looks like we're going to have the same amount of people living in this development. It's just going to be high density.
Your
Correct statement?
density. Yes, sir.
Now we're going to be adding some light industrial. So
The-
that'll affect the amount of traffic we're going to have through that area. Is that a correct statement?
The amount of traffic going to this area, so the primary road for this development is going to be Moncure Pittsboro Road. Moncure Pittsboro Road is, first of all, under capacity today. Second of all, there are a number of improvements going to Moncure Pittsboro Road, either as part of this project or I can't remember the name of it, but there's another project. So there are a number of improvements going on Moncure Pittsboro.
Del Webb is next door.
Yeah, that's,
Yes, Del Webb
Yes, sir.
is the one across the street over on the old chicken plants land.
Mhm.
Back in that area. And that was supposed to be senior citizens or 55 or what is it, 55 and above?
Yeah.
The way I understand it. I'm just getting awful nervous because if you drive down 15501 going towards the courthouse, boy, in the morning, that traffic backs all the way up, I think almost to Pittsboro Moncure Road at times. So I want to make sure this gets into the records on traffic.
And it would be my belief that there might be a traffic study, or there would probably be one likely when we got around to subdivision. I do want to, that's a yes. He's nodding yes. I believe I've actually seen at least a preliminary report along. Yes, he's saying yes. But let me say to you that while you want to balance the concerns of traffic, I do want to remind you that when VinFast opens, those people have to live somewhere. This is a development where taxes go to the town, revenue goes to the town, sales tax goes to the town. My charge in this particular position is to improve the economic vitality of the town. And with some of that economic vitality, of course, comes some amount of traffic. Changes to Moncure Pittsboro Road, if indicated by the traffic study or by the Del Webb traffic study or any other traffic study, would certainly be a matter for DOT to address or them to address in cooperation with DOT. But I want to point out that I would not want to deprive 300 households of a place to live and to work and to recreate, and potentially even in the light industrial areas, work on site over a concern about traffic. I hear it, but I'm also going to tell you that planning is a plan for orderly growth.
Well, if I can comment on that.
Please do.
Put me on what meeting it was at. When we do a traffic study and it's done by the state, it does not affect any roads coming into state highways. It only affects the state highways. And I was told that one time, I think it was the last town manager, that we would be looking at a study of the inflow roads coming into it. Now, this wouldn't affect this individual or in this particular project. But what I'm saying to you, there's times I can't get off Small Street and that's where I live.
I'm hearing that.
And now we've got more developed. We got one, and then there's going to be another one coming down on 64 West.
Well, the particular issue with,
I want to make sure I bring these points up.
and I appreciate you doing that. I'm just going to say this to you. The purpose of a traffic impact study, and I would definitely appreciate it if my sidekick here would kick in at any point he feels like he wants to add to it. But the purpose of the traffic impact study is to assess current conditions versus what happens when this builds out. So it's supposed to be an accurate prediction of those situations. And certainly, obviously, over a period of time, traffic patterns change. I'm going to tell you that part of my travel here every single day is through Apex and Cary. I would have to tell you that the traffic is 1970 in those two locations. But let me also point out again, part of my department's charge is to balance the need for organized growth into the future and the need to maintain public safety, which is what the purpose of the traffic study is, and to direct people toward methodology that improves safety for everyone. So I don't want to give anyone the impression that denying this project suddenly solves the traffic for the entire town of Pittsboro for the rest of our lives. Just doing some very quick math on this, you're adding, I don't know, 1,500 trips per day or something to that effect, plus whatever comes to the commercial. Laura, dive in. I'm sorry. This is an expert. I'm just allowed.
So Laura Holland with McAdams. I'm not a traffic engineer, but we have retained a traffic engineer, Kimberly Horn, which of course is well versed in traffic. Has been working on this traffic analysis, and as part of if we get to the next stage, which we're hoping we will, the traffic impact analysis will come in at the subdivision plan when we know exactly how many units, how many square footages. That all will be studied. We meet with DOT. We have a scoping meeting. They tell us which intersections we need to study. They also tell us the approved or coming online projects that are in the area that we also need to factor in. And then there's also on top of that, a general percentage growth rate. So that's factoring in your very valid point about growth coming into the area and getting more trips on the road. So that's all factored in. We've got to contend with that. And it all gets punched into our TIA. Spit out exactly what we need to do to make sure that we have an effective plan at the end of the day that meets adequate growth management. Because, y'all don't want extra extra traffic on the roads that creates a lot of problems. You know, we don't want that for our folks either. We want to make sure that we're creating as best traffic scenarios as we can. You're absolutely right. This is going to create more traffic than what's there now, but there is a way to adequately plan for it.
And my point probably should have been directed at the last part of the meeting, rather, it's not so much being directed at this particular development, but we got like 5 or 6 majors and I don't even know what's in the hopper.
Well, that's actually part of this evening's agenda is to talk to you a little bit about the hopper.
So there's gonna be a lot.
Yeah, but
Bill, supposedly there's a bypass or a road being built by either Chatham Park or DOT or somebody across Moncur Road, just to the east of this particular development, unless that's died in the works.
Yeah, Parkway, yeah. Look into the back of the room.
It's being built by the DOT.
No.
yeah.
I don't know what the timeline is on that, but I was under the impression it was supposed to have been started already.
I don't know if it's been started, but I would agree with the statement you made. I believe that's a north-south collector road, so to speak, going through Chatham Park that would serve kind of the same movement that Mount Zion serves right now.
Yeah.
It'll be a much bigger facility than Mount Zion. Yeah.
We did reach out to DOT about that, and that is very much still in the works.
Hopefully soon. I live on Moncur Road.
Okay.
Understood.
Well, I do recall from our presentation by the Dell Web folks that those 55 plus people don't go to and from to the office. And so the traffic impact is significantly lower.
That helps. You're right. They're not contributing a lot to the peak hour.
All the high density now coming in.
Well, they'll all be driving golf carts. Or flying, right. Any further questions, comments from the board before we ask for a motion for conditional approval? Further questions? Do I hear a motion to conditionally approve PB 23-289 or deny?
Move to approve.
Bill Baker moves to approve. Do I hear a second? Do I hear a motion to deny?
I'll second then move to approve.
Thank you. Second from Charity Mize. All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Charity Mize, aye.
Aye.
Ray Carney, aye. Bill Baker.
Okay, I really couldn't hear what you said.
Oh, she moved to move to conditionally approve. Approve,
Aye.
okay. Bill Baker approve. Mr. Schaefer,
No.
Mr. Schaefer, nay.
For the record.
3-1.
Got it.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you. All right, we're moving now to new business and Teresa Thompson is joining us.
Yes.
Welcome back, Teresa. It's nice to see you.
Thank you.
And she's going to be presenting the Corbett Landing final subdivision plot, sub 2021-01.
I got you.
Boom, let's share my screen. Okay. All right. Well, good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. I am Teresa Thompson, the Downtown Development Director. I recognize most of you here. I'm assisting the planning department on a few items tonight as we are short-staffed at this time. This item, Corbett Landing, was submitted a few months ago and has been delayed. So to keep it moving, I've been asked to review it and bring it to the planning board tonight. I'll go through some basic history of the project since some of you weren't here in 2020 and then kind of bring you up to speed where we are now. and what the next steps are. So Rexford Group is requesting to subdivide approximately 192 acres on 2 lots into 116 single-family residential properties located along Old Graham Road, north of the US 64 bypass. And it's that property in red there, which is a part of the town limits now. It was satellite annexed. So the property is currently under development. You can see the outlines where the roads are being put in at this time that the aerial was taken. It's located in the RACZ, Conditional Zoning District, which allows for single-family residential lots. So a little bit about the CZ approval. It was approved on October 26th of 2020. There are several conditions required. This isn't all of them, but I want to go through a few of them with you. They were required to extend public water, which has been done, to provide utility greenway easements for future use, to provide stub outs for a third entrance, to create pocket parks and walking trails per the exhibit map, which I'll show in a second, to complete construction of an amenity center upon the issuance of the 30th CO, certificate of occupancy for residential homes. They need to maintain the entrance at the northwest corner as a temporary construction entrance, maintain the current cemetery, which will be maintained by the HOA, have a 30-foot vegetative and undisturbed buffer along the entire exterior boundary. There will be a donation to the Affordable Housing Fund, paid no later than 6 months after the final plat. And they were required to petition for annexation within 30 days after preliminary plat approval, which they did, and property was annexed. So the next step, oh, and here's the exhibit map that was approved with the conditional rezoning. So some of you may recognize this map. And with the preliminary plat was next, that was approved on November 22nd, 2021. A couple of additional approvals included a waiver from providing sidewalks on both sides of the streets. Typically, subdivisions require that. With this being in a more rural area, the boards agreed to allow it on just one side. And the applicant also requests to do a public recreation fee in lieu, which that was approved as well. And here's one of the sheets from the preliminary plat. You can see that it conforms to the exhibit map. The next step was construction drawings approved on November 10th, 2022. Authorization to construct January 30th, 2023. So as Randy referenced earlier, by this time, it's typically a staff decision, review process and decision. It's administrative approval. This particular project was in place before the UDO was adopted in 2021. So they fell under the old ordinance, which did require final plat to go to the planning board and the town board. That hasn't been done in several years, and it won't be done again unless the ordinances change. That's the only reason why it's coming to you tonight, is that it falls under previous standards. And again, you can see how the CDs substantially conform to the preliminary plat. So now we're looking at the final plat. Like I said, this is typically a staff approval, staff level approval. And the approval, that's for the CDs, excuse me, that was a copy and paste error. But there is a recreation fee in lieu required, as I said. Several final inspections and approvals are required, such as DOT, driveway, environmental health, street trees, sidewalks, street signs, mail kiosks, perimeter buffer, along with the 2 other things. So I was asked to come in and review this plat. I have not had the time to finish the review. And with this development already being delayed, we wanted to bring this to the board, explain where we are at this time. We can ensure you that staff will make sure every requirement is met before it goes to the town board. That is set to hopefully go before them on November 13th. So that gives us a couple more weeks to button up a few things. So we are aware that there are deficiencies on the final plat. We've already talked to the applicant about this. And we've submitted the comments that we have so far on it. We're going to finish this review. And if the planning board is so inclined, we recommend doing a conditional approval. And we pretty much listed everything that you can think of that is required. So that's all applicable standards in the subdivision ordinance, complies with all applicable town ordinances, state and federal laws, complies with all standards or conditions of any prior applicable permits and approvals. So staff will ensure this is completed. And we also have the town engineer, Kent Jackson, here tonight. He's been a part of the process from the beginning. The applicant is here, including the surveyor, if you have questions for them. And please let me know if you have any questions for me as well.
Carl.
Yeah, Teresa, is this totally an independent project? It's not tied to any other part of Chatham Park or any other development? It's totally independent?
Correct.
Okay.
I looked at this plat and was very surprised that this was submitted as is. If this plat were to be approved and recorded, this would be a matter for the professional board. It's missing bearings and distances for multiple sheets.
Which page are we on?
I stopped sharing if you'd like to share.
Oh, I think I do not.
And we did speak to the surveyor about that, and there were several layers that were accidentally not turned on.
Okay.
They printed the final plat. So they did bring a paper copy tonight that they're going to give me that has everything turned on.
Okay.
So again, we'll make sure that was caught. The town attorney caught that as well. So we'll make sure that all of that is taken care of. So yeah, you're not the only one that noticed that.
I didn't think so. I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah.
Thanks, Corey. Any other questions or discussion? Ray.
Is there any chance, this is like the third one that's come up tonight, that it's going for conditional because we don't have all the facts. Can we get a listing from the development? What you're going to be discussing and what's going to happen so that we know what's going on?
Sure. So based on my preliminary review, the majority of the items are minor. So examples would be, let's see. Well, for one, the ink needs to be in black. It can't be colored for it to be recorded. So they would need to remove the color. Ink, the property designation name of subdivision was not in the title block, nor was the name of the property owner. There needs to be a listing of all of the surveyors, architects, and engineers responsible for the subdivision. I did not see the parcel IDs on the cover sheet or the corporate limits and county lines. The sheets were not numbered. We also are missing like an overall layout that shows how each sheet connects. It's a little confusing on when you're going through the sheets to see how they all connect. I think it's missing one sheet as well that shows the entrances. So I know that it's done. It's just, I don't think it printed. So I want to also do some inspections to make sure. I know engineering's been inspecting, but I want to inspect the perimeter buffer, the kiosk, the street signs, street trees, things like that, that need to be done. If not done, they need to be bonded or a letter of credit, which the town engineer has been working with the applicant on. And the town attorney would approve the bonding letter of credits, subdivision improvement agreement, stormwater maintenance agreement, and there's one other one. There's one other that he would required to approve as well. So, there's several items that we'll make sure is done. Let's see. Areas to be dedicated as common area or open space labeled the future ownership. So, if it's going to be the HOA that's going to maintain, that needs to be identified. The lots that are not going to be residential, I want that to be clear, the amenity center and the cemetery. And and what that's going to include per the conditional rezoning. It had to, it required a few things like the greenways need to be labeled private. That was something else that we saw. So there's a couple of statements to the certificate of purpose of plat. The certificate of owner and dedication for major plats needs to be swapped out with the one they have. Let's see. The certificate of approval of the design installation of streets, utilities, stormwater control measures, and other required improvements needs to be included. And I also had several questions. Since I have not been at the site yet, is the street lighting complete? You know, we'll make sure that it's done. And if it's not done, it'll be bonded. But things like that, I want to make sure that all improvements are complete. We want all of the utility easements labeled public or private. We want to see easements for all offsite septic systems. We need to make sure the recreation fee in lieu is paid. That was it. That was the fourth one for the town attorney. Let's see. We want environmental health to give a sign off on the final soil scientist lot by lot soil evaluation report. Something else, since I was not involved in this project at the CD level, I want to make sure that all final local and state approvals have been complete. So all final inspections and approvals. So we've reached out to all of the departments, DOT, environmental health, engineering, and requested that they just submit everything back to me just so I can see it myself and that make sure everything was done. So those are the main comments that I have at this time. I think they're typical, you know, I don't see anything in there that can't be fixed. We're just trying to keep this project moving along, hopefully, you know, to keep them on schedule.
Okay, thank you.
So Teresa, those open items that you enumerated, those will all be buttoned up before this moves on to the Town Board of Commissioners
Yes, sir.
approval. So any further questions or discussions from the board before I ask for a motion to conditionally approve or deny the Corbett Landing final subdivision plan? Do I hear a motion?
I motion we accept
Ray Carney.
conditions that were just mentioned to us.
Ray Carney moves to conditionally approve. Do I hear a second? Baker, second. All in favor, aye.
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 All opposed? Passed unanimously. Sub 2021-01 Corbett Landing. Moving on to our next new business, text amendment to the principal use table, PB 23-486. And Director Cahoon Tingle is at the podium.
Okay, just a word while we're getting some materials passed out that are coming from the petitioner.
These are from the applicant.
There was a trend for a period of time with this particular planning board of a lot of items got tabled. And at the request of the elected officials and the town manager, we were asked to move a little bit more in a direct, I'll take one. Move a little bit more in the direct. Yeah, cool. Move a little bit more in the direction of approvals or denials. The problem is that, you know, if you have a project that keeps ricocheting back in here, begins to feel like we're not making any progress. So denial is a direction too. Just want to be real clear. But I say all that just to say that we had a rather lengthy staff meeting today. It was in fits. It was not a cohesive piece, but it was decided that I would rather go forward with some conditional approvals with the idea that we might be doing a little bit of homework in between. In the case of Turkey Creek, I do want to point out that there was such an extreme about face. I mean, when you literally take everything that's on the west and move it to the east, everything that's on the east and move it to the west, and you completely add the density that the town board has asked for on this project for a period of over a year, it did not feel morally or ethically correct to tell you all that we were just going to take last time's approval and rubber stamp it and send it up the line, because the question when you're on the receiving end of that particular package and you happen to be an elected official is, what the heck is this? It lost the planning board meeting. What's going on up in here? So I do want to somewhat apologize, but it's more of an explanation for the situation. Moving over to this next item, which is an amendment to UDO section 3.2.4 principal use table and add standards to section 3.2.5 E commercial uses, 1 recreation entertainment. I do want to throw out sort of a story for you all, because I believe that some of these projects require a little bit of a story. And this is a story I want you to hear. I got here 6 months ago or thereabouts. And my first task was to learn the UDO. And so I put an awful lot of effort into familiarizing myself with the UDO. And I'm going to say, as a person who's written a number of them in the state of North Carolina, written a lot of ordinances and done a lot of composition over the last 20 years, I have to say, this is arguably the very first time I have ever gone to commercial uses and looked for standards and found the only standards were for an adult establishment. There are a number of types of recreation. If we're having trouble figuring out some possibilities for recreation that don't involve an adult establishment, then I can stand here and enumerate those. But let me just say that it was brought to my attention early on that one of the largest deficiencies in our existing text, which I believe if you go to the next little slide there, I think y'all are going to just keep going. Whoop, right there. It's so fast. But basically, the thing at the top is the existing text. It mushes private recreation and then private recreation and entertainment facility outdoor. So whether it's recreation or entertainment, it's all the same. And when you drop down to the standards, if you go down a little bit further on the page, what you'll see is the part in black. That's all we have. So if you're running a recreational venue outdoors and it doesn't have to be a strip club or an adult establishment, we had 0 standards. So part of my charge is to clarify that. Now, this particular project came from Jan Nichols, VCR Limited. She wants to amend the principal use table and add standards for recreation and entertainment and the commercial uses found in the UDO in section 3.2.5. What's proposed here, as you can see up there, is to separate out private recreation facility and a private entertainment facility. I want to remind you all, I went to a concert probably about 4 months ago in an outdoor arena, Red Hat. And I'm going to say to you, I was in a privately owned outdoor recreation facility. It was not a strip club, perhaps a little disappointing to some of the people who were there. But let me just say, it was a great evening. It was a great way to spend my time. It is atypical to have no standards for that. The current UDO groups together all private recreation, all entertainment facilities that are outdoors into a single category and requires a special use permit for every single district except CMUC, M1, and M2. The irony is that M1 and M2 are heavy industrial and light industrial. So I'm assembling batteries or car parts, but I can also have an outdoor strip club, apparently. I saw this as a way that we probably should have a discussion about it. Land use plan update, stakeholder interviews in the back of the book place a high emphasis on recreation, open space, and conservation. A privately held recreational facility could easily be viewed as one component of an overall increase in recreational activities, most particularly outdoor ones in a private type of setting. What we're looking for here tonight is 2 things, well, 3 things really. I want a recommendation to either approve or deny this particular request. I will have the petitioner up here in just a minute. I am generally supportive. Generally supportive means I'm going to go back to the table and we're going to play with some letters, some alphabet letters. But I'm going to tell you what my strongest feelings are. And I do also feel that in the red text at the bottom of the change, where facilities should not be used for public events, games, or competitions, I would like to add a sentence that I feel, which I did not add to this, but it will be added before it goes to the Board of Commissioners if you all approve this option. I really feel it's very strongly important to make it clear. We are not looking for the resting place for even for 6 months for porta johns. If I'm going to pave my parking lot and I'm going to make my place worthy of a place to recreationally practice basketball, tennis, softball, cricket, soccer, pickleball, or other sports for use by the owner and invited participants, I'm going to want a place to use the bathroom. And I don't want to do it in a porta john, and I don't want them to sit out there until they become nice and smelly in the summertime. So I would like them, if you're going to pave your parking lot, you should also have some sort of recreational restroom facilities. I do want to point out to you that I live on a lake in a recreational area in a part of Raleigh, and there are bathrooms out there and the toilets are composting, just letting you know. So if you go to the chart, first request by our petitioner, who's going to come right up in just a minute and join me, is to separate them out. I'm going to say, I feel the strongest about this being a use by right for the private recreation, not the private entertainment. At top line, those first three, RA5, RA2, and RA. Those are places in our ETJ, just so you all understand exactly where we're talking about. Recreational or rural, agricultural, 2, 5, and RA are places where you might have an outdoor venue that is private for a recreational purpose. Now, when you get over here into R15 and you start over here onto the rest of this list that's right here, I'm pointing toward the TV here, but you all are probably looking at it on the screen here. I'm not going to do a Vanna White, but when you get down there into the R15, R12, R10, R5, the lots are getting smaller, we're getting in tighter, and we could be inside of the town. So maybe not so much. C2, we're not too far from there. I don't have any problem with it being a part of the CMUC because the current situation is it is a use by right there. It's also a use by right in the M1 and M2, not having a problem. Only area where I would recommend a potential possibility is to change the row of S's starting with R15 over to MR. So there's 5 of them, change them to some nice, even the C2 into a nice S. So it's still a special use permit. The town does have some say so about what happens there. So I am, when I say generally supportive, what generally supportive means is I think the bottom is a great improvement over the top. I think adding some standards that say, hey, by outdoor recreation, I mean a place where I can practice cricket or soccer or tennis or softball or basketball or baseball, something like that, a practice court that is privately held by me. And I want to be able to do it out there with a nice parking lot and that wonderful bathroom we were just discussing. Although as we get more sewer capacity, it could be an actual attached city sewer. But what I'm saying to you all is I think this is an improvement. This is a step in the right direction. May have a little arm wrestling here with Jan in just a minute about what letters belong where. I'm definitely going to invite her up, not to wrestle, but to speak to you all. And when she concludes.
No floor show.
No floor show. We're not going to wrestle. Okay. Did y'all hear that? She turned me down.
Yes.
Okay. And this is her typewritten statement. She's going to speak now.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm not going to read the statement. You have it in front of you. We're interested in seeing this change made. I would say we have no problems with the changes proposed to the more dense areas. I understand the logic behind that. When you're in density, putting in your own basketball court or even a place you want to practice softball could be an issue. And therefore it should be special use. I also have no problems with the addition of, requirement that you have restrooms, regardless of how many months of the year you plan to use it. And having said that, I would just ask if you have any questions you want to ask.
Board members, any questions?
Does this apply to existing facilities?
Would this apply retrospectively? No, I don't.
It doesn't become retroactive.
Yeah.
Such as Town Lake Park and some of the others we have.
Our rules for ourselves and for the parks that are town owned are slightly different. This is for, and this is the part where we tell them what we have. Yeah, they have a request. There is a neighborhood and they have a request from some individuals who are interested in establishing an outdoor practice field for cricket.
Right.
Which if you all have been over to Fuquay, you've been over to Holly Springs, you spent any time in Cary, I think you'll discover that cricket is today what I believe soccer was when I was a teenager, which was a little odd and newly introduced. Those of you who are half my age or younger, actually soccer has been a part of your life the whole time. And I believe if you live to be my age, you will find that cricket has also become a part of your everyday life.
Yeah.
So I could not understand the rationale behind making that unlawful and requiring special use permits and adding a bunch of conditions for a bunch of people who want to put a nice big fence up, lock it, and have some parking facilities and toilet. That's what initiated this. I'm going to say, though, that I really feel very strongly that the change that with some minor changes that has been recommended, I really feel it's in the town's best interest. It adds to the growth. Areas that are currently in the ETJ will someday become part of the town. And certainly I would like someone to reserve the right to, at least one, I'll call anything out, gets me yelled at, but let me just say there's at least one large development here that has made cricket a possibility on at least one of their ball fields as well. If you're going to play cricket on one of their ball fields, I'd like you to practice on this one so you know what you're doing when you get out there.
Any other questions on text amendment, Ray?
Could someone explain to me what the definition is of entertainment?
Okay, as I said, my trip to Red Hat, that was highly entertaining. I saw Red Hat is in downtown Raleigh. It is an outdoor arena. I've also been over to the Cocoa Booth Amphitheater. I went to see a British group who does something called trip hop. Shout out to my trip hop friends out there. It was a very interesting evening. Watching 80s rap was quite interesting as well because they're all my age and mostly white. But anyway, it was fun. It was a fun way to spend an evening. So that would be outdoor entertainment. Some other possibilities for outdoor entertainment.
Those are the ones that come to mind for me.
Concert.
Concerts, maybe some of the events that they have around Christmas or Halloween where you have drive-through or come see our decorations, but sports is by nature different.
But I'm going to certainly say that the first thing that comes to my mind with outdoor recreation and entertainment is not an adult establishment.
Well, that's what one of my points. My second point is that if we have concerts, the noise level, how does that affect other residents?
Well, we're talking about practice fields for sports, which would not have that level. There's no spectators.
That's why I asked what the question was.
Might be a little bit of yelling.
It's in entertainment, it's in this ordinance that we want to change.
Right. We want to separate recreation from entertainment.
Well, one thing to note is that actually the private entertainment stays what is currently in the
It
ordinance.
remains the same. You have to get a special use permit.
Yeah. It's only the recreation.
Special use.
I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
What about one-time use? That a Kiwanis Club wants to have a concert in somebody's field.
In a cricket field? That's what.
Would that be?
I'm not saying a cricket field, I'm saying
They wouldn't want you on they wouldn't want it on the pitch. That would not be a good thing.
do what?
If you have a cricket field, you don't want people on your,
I'm talking about a cricket field.
but
If you want to have a concert, if you want to have a thing for kids.
I think you would get
something in the private field.
I think you would get a temporary use
yeah,
permit.
that's different.
Would that be require bathrooms?
Well, actually, it really all depends. City owned and city operated events, it kind of comes and goes. And if it's a one-day event, no, I think you'd be likely to use porta johns. The trick with a one-day event is making sure that the next day's event is picking up the porta johns.
What if they determine they want to do it once a month?
Then they would come get a separate permit each time, but it's not affected by this.
Oh.
Okay. This is the Randy Club. You can only
Yeah, it is.
Randy to join this one.
Mr. Bowler, welcome.
We have an honorary Randy here.
Please. 2 Randys are enough.
I think the main point is, we just think it's more elegant to separate them because
Listen to music.
I'm a musician, as Eric knows, and that's a totally different use, like Shakori. And that should come through if you're gonna build a Shakori. If people are gonna build basketball courts like at Chatham Forest or this, especially on these bigger parcels, it should be. And to your point, any one-offs should just be able to come to the town and get a permit for a one-off.
Okay, I just wondered.
I think they should.
Yeah, it just, otherwise, it doesn't make sense that they're in that way.
The one point that became super different when we were trying to put her original special use permit together was she did say the ordinance is absolutely mute on the topic of whether or not you need permanent toilet facilities for something that is in operation for 6 months out of the year. As a person who worked in a downtown district of a neighboring town, and it wasn't all that close to here, I was on a second story, and the town very generously, while deciding to have part of the music festival in our parking lot behind me, left the porta johns out there for a period of 3.5 months, and you could literally sit at my desk and guess when and how they had last been used and when and how they had last been cleaned out. I actually had to call the company in Pink Hill and say, okay, that's enough. Come get it. So I told her I was trying to avoid that. And one of the ways to avoid that would be to require, I'm an awful lot more interested in the toilet facilities than I am in the parking facilities. If you felt that you're going to reuse the property, you may just want to use crushed rock.
Mhm.
And I think that's a reasonable request, and there are a number of different types of solutions to put in that requirement. So I don't think it doesn't seem to be a problem to me.
I'm trying to just make the first stab at getting these uses separated. And also to make it possible for our neighbors to the east, west, I give up. Where's Viewpoint in relationship to here?
Oh,
South, okay, I'm sorry, in the south area to be able to come up here and take advantage of some areas in the ETJ for private practice.
Want to ask a question again?
Dive away.
If a town builds a basketball court for the kids, they got to have a bathroom?
I would like to believe that the town would make that but again, our ordinances as they apply to us are a little bit different than they apply to. This is about a stranger putting in a facility that is visited by a number of people to use for a specific purpose at intervals over a period of time.
So you got, kids got a basketball court with no bathrooms in town.
Well,
Put porta johns for them?
dive in.
I gotta ask.
We did go and do a survey of the town's facilities, so to speak, and pointed out that none of them at this point were permanent, like at Powell Place Park and South, that they were porta johns, and that we thought ultimately it would be nice if they were all consistent. I mean, what you're basically saying is you already have public that's going this way in private. So we were hoping to get to consistency in the future.
We have a non-Randy joining the party.
That's the planner. I think the town, I'm Brandon Moore. I think the town basketball court would be considered public recreation facility as opposed to the private.
It sounds like park.
So that would be a different
Conversation.
Yeah.
For a different night.
It's a different use.
I just wonder how you can,
Eventually solve all the problems of the town.
but you don't do the town.
I'll eventually solve all the problems of the town, but I'm doing them one at a time. Y'all don't mind.
Well, if there are no further questions or comments from the board, I'll invite a motion to approve the text amendment or deny the text amendment, as it may be your pleasure. Do I hear a motion?
I move to approve what has been presented to us with the following two conditions. And these were explained pretty well by Randy. The first condition is that the bathroom statement be added to item EB, and I am fully at the discretion of staff to make that statement. And then condition 2 is that the private recreation facility outdoor is a permitted use in RA5, RA2, RA. And for the rest of the categories, it is a special use permit requirement.
except for CU. I'm sorry, that been?
Nope, that's what it, nope.
Okay,
My statement's clear.
okay.
It may die for lack of second, but that's my motion.
No. Well, we'll invite a second to Carl's conditional approval.
Second.
Bill Baker seconds. I hear the vote of the board. All in favor, aye?
Excuse me.
Oh, go ahead.
I'd like to hear
Response.
some justification. Why you would like the P in the CMUC, please.
Because right this minute, it is a use by right. Literally, if you look at the chart at the top, I'm sorry, Steve, if you'll go up. Oh, if you look at the chart right now, CMUC is P, P, P. So I was simply restoring some S's where they're missing.
Okay, put one on the C2, so you got.
Yeah.
So we have a motion by Carl, second by Bill. All in favor, aye?
Aye.
All opposed?
Thinking.
You're thinking,
No answer is a yes.
all right.
Aye.
Aye. So Ray, Carl, Bill, aye. Charity, are you an aye or an A?
I'm an I.
An aye, okay. Corey, aye. Passes unanimous.
All right. Thank you so much. I appreciate your help this evening.
Thank you.
Only thing I get nervous about is somebody's gonna come up and say, I wanna do.
I'll hear what you're thinking.
Well, I'm just saying, that's my concern.
We're going to move on now to PB 23-293, and Teresa, welcome back to the podium.
Thank you. Chatham Park Investors has submitted a preliminary plat for a major subdivision in Chatham Park, section 7.1, lot 10, parcel ID 7101 and 60745, located north of Settles Road and south of Grant Drive. The staff report included an analysis. If you want to scroll down, past the application. Yeah, right there is where it starts. So we go into details, project details. The area size is 14.24 acres. And it's currently undeveloped. It's currently in the town limits. And the proposed land use is 102 townhome sites, or you could call them attached single family lots as well. Same use though. We go on to speak on development intensity and utilities, environment, and access and circulation. So we go through each item in those categories, explain how they've been met at the preliminary plat step, and then what's required at the CD step. So we'll, as staff, make sure all of this is complete. And then the last step would be final plat approval, which at this, for Chatham Park, that is a staff approval. So overall, the plans have been reviewed in accordance to the town's applicable standards, including the Chatham Park elements, small area plan, UDO, public utilities, public safety, stormwater, and planning. Please let me know if you have any questions. The applicant is here tonight if you have any questions for them as well.
Board members, questions, comments?
I just have a question about parking. Will it be street facing, or will the parking be in the?
The parking is rear loaded, correct?
Rear loaded like Powell Place would be.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think the vineyard has that too, don't they?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Any other questions or discussion before we invite a motion to approve or deny? What's the pleasure of the board? Do I hear a motion?
I move to approve.
Carl Schaefer moves to approve. Do I hear a second? Second. Bill Baker seconds. All in favor of approving PB 23-293? Aye.
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 Any opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you, Teresa.
Thank you. I have one more.
I see that. Gather your next sheaf of papers and proceed.
Okay, so this request is also by Chatham Park. They have submitted a preliminary plat for a major subdivision, section 6.2, phase 1B, located east of Chatham Parkway and north of Highway 64 bypass. So again, we've gone through all of the logistical items, everything that's required. We've broken them down into categories to make it easier for everybody to see what the standards are and how they're met and at which level, what stage of the subdivision process it's required. This project is 12.45 acres. It's within the town limits already. It's currently undeveloped, and the proposed land use is 44 single-family detached lots and 8 townhome lots. I can go through some of the categories in a little more detail if you'd like, if you want to scroll down to utilities. So Chatham Park investors will provide the wastewater via the Water Recovery Center. Water is provided from the town of Pittsboro. Engineering and public utilities will review and approve the utility plans during the CD phase. Environmental, so there's an impervious percentage of 67.31. Chatham Park was approved as an overall up to 70%. So, some are a little below that, some are above that. But the total overall for the entire development will be no more than 70%. The applicant will submit stormwater plans to engineering with the CDs. And there is a perennial stream on the southern side and the north side of the site. They do meet the 100-foot riparian buffer on the stream. So we go on landscaping, park, land, and open space, all of the requirements being met there. And we will review specific landscaping details at the CD level, and everything will be inspected for the final plat. Lastly, being access and circulation. So the final approval of the roadways will be required at the CD level. Like I explained with the Corbett Landing, everything has to be substantially the same. So if there's any major difference at any stage, whether it's the CD or final plat, they have to start all over again. So that's one thing that staff ensures happens. There will be 5-foot sidewalks on both sides of the internal streets, and there's already existing sidewalks on the adjoining roads. And there will also, there has been a traffic impact assessment. It's actually done for a more intense development, so there's no concerns with the trips per day that's anticipated for this project. So again, this preliminary plat has been reviewed in accordance to all the town's applicable standards, including the elements, small area plan, UDO, utilities, public safety, stormwater, and planning. And staff recommends the planning board to recommend approval of the preliminary.
Any questions? Carl?
I got a question. Teresa, I got lost on the landscaping and open space table.
Okay.
Well, it's a 12.4 acre parcel. Open space 3.42, 1/100th times 38.
Yes, sir.
So where's the 38 acres?
So that's actually the number of units. So this was initially one phase, and it was split out into 1A and 1B. So based on how the two phases split out, they had to separate the lots. So it still meets the overall landscaping requirements, but it doesn't have the total number of lots that shows for the subdivision. It's just the way that it was split out for the landscaping. And if the applicant would like to give more detail on that.
Well, then right below it, we got 20.49 acres, 10% of the site. Something just doesn't correlate in my head there. Even with the combined, the two parcels, is that right? 20 acres? Which if it's 10%, that implies a 200-acre project.
That might be a typo. Is that
That's for the 20.
20 acres,
Open space, 20.49.
or is that based on the open space area? This one's a little confusing because it was broken down into subphases.
Yeah, so the total being provided, type A, which is the entire zone 1 and 2 buffer areas, and the type D south of the buffer areas is part of the whole phase plan. And then specifically with the type E, that's where we split it out, the 1A and the 1B. I believe. Calculate those numbers just to make sure. Yeah, it looks like a number error more than anything.
Okay. Yeah, that does seem to be too high.
What's the combined acreage of the two parcels together?
The total project area, including the entire parcel, is 215.98 acres.
Okay, so that does reflect the total.
It says 10%, so yes.
Okay. That's confusing to me because it looks like that's pointing at this 12 acres specifically when it really has a bigger intent to it.
I'll provide a little bit of clarification too. When we look at open space and parkland, we're definitely looking at it on a per unit basis as a requirement. But we're also tracking it kind of holistically, for all of Chatham Park. So we may not necessarily meet it, exactly for each phase, but overall, we're looking at it to make sure we're meeting it for the entirety of the project too. So that's why some of the numbers may not be exactly right.
And we do have a tally sheet that staff keeps, we keep updated for each subdivision to make sure that they meet that open space requirement.
Is that a table that maybe we should put on the open space and land area plan?
We can include that, sure.
Just for tracking purposes?
Sure.
Now, the running totals would be interesting to see.
Yeah, staff has done that on some previous ones I remember this past summer. That was really, really helpful.
I'll just say, we could do, it's tricky because we're kind of doing so many different projects at a time.
Sure.
And so like, if we're doing these two projects together, but we're doing another one that's harder to keep
Mhm.
plan sheets, we prefer to just keep it on the plan sheets for each project.
Mhm.
And then we're submitting our like CD and your plan, we're submitting our updated overall sheet for tracking purposes so that staff can track.
But yeah, we can provide as much detail as we can for future staff reports.
Yeah, it'd be nice to see the rolling numbers.
And the reason I ask that is because on the open space plan, your provided open space area says 2.11 acres.
I think that's for phase 1B specifically.
Is it? Okay. So then if we could at least include all of phasing.
Okay, yeah, so another part of it too is some of our projects kind of span multiple phases, which makes it easier, but more confusing too, but. 1235.
Any other questions or discussion?
I have a question about affordable housing. Are any of these houses going to be devoted to that?
I do not think that the affordable housing is going to be covered in these. That information was not shared like when we were reviewing anything, so I would say no.
And just in general, is Chatham Park devoting a percentage towards affordable housing?
There is a affordable housing element. I think that that's actually being looked at right now. I don't have a lot of specifics on that as I'm just kind of helping out with the planning department. So, there is an element though.
Chuck, Grace, if you.
Come on, Chuck.
Expect to be speaking tonight. But we have a 7.5% requirement that we are providing for the entire project. The first threshold that we have to meet is a certain number by the time we get to 5,000 units. So we're not there yet. You'll be seeing within the next couple of weeks, well, you won't be seeing, staff will be seeing, we're submitting our first affordable housing site plan for that. I think we'll get to you for review, but it'll have a few hundred units on that one. But anyway, we provided beyond what we're supposed to be providing at this point. But the first time there's a check and balance in the system is when it gets to 5,000 units in Chatham Park. And we've got to have something like, I think 300 and whatever, 7.5% is 347 units by then. If you want the specifics of the breakdown of those kind of units, I can give them to you, but they're in the element that's on the town's website.
Okay, neat.
Yep.
Thanks.
Enough.
Yeah, that's.
Jeff.
I have one question.
Right.
We see the Eubanks Road expansion process. It's under recommended. And then we have another highway there. It's recommended. How are they going to get to this? Are they going to start building these roads or?
So for this one, there's the existing
Page 4.
Chatham Parkway.
Page 4.
But yes,
I think-
some of these roads will have to be
Oh, I got you.
constructed.
There we go.
Yeah, there you go.
Sorry.
You can see the dotted lines they say proposed.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, so that is just to show you how it meets the comprehensive transportation plan. That overall circle just kind of gives you an idea of the location. Where the arrow is pointing is more accurate to where this subdivision is. So it is adjacent to the Chatham Parkway, which that is currently constructed to a point. But the additional roads off of that will have to be constructed.
So they'll access us from the Chatham Parkway over the bypass.
There will be.
All right.
No further questions or discussion. I'll invite a motion to approve or deny.
I move to approve.
Carl Schaefer moves to approve. Bill Baker moves to second, and all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Passed unanimously. PB 23-300. That brings us to planning department updates, and I don't know if the director has anything to add. All right, please do.
How long? I appreciate it. Just wanted to tell you all, we're going to be having some training sessions coming up. We are going to be doing some batches of changes to the UDO. I really feel pretty strongly that tonight's activities, and I want to be real clear about this. When I first came here, the newspaper interviewed me, and the question that I was asked was how excited I was to be working with Chatham Park. And I said, well, I am. But what excites me even more is the possibility of being able to take what seems to be sort of a triangle, sort of an out of shape wheel, and then round it, look for some opportunities to do some growth that actually filled in that wheel. And I'm going to say that within the course of the conversation about Del Webb, within the conversation that we had earlier with Turkey Creek, which I do appreciate you all's help with, the conversation about the site directly across the street from here, the possibility of connecting it to another project we're going to be talking about later this week. With, again, it's a pre-application, so it'll be a little bit of time. I did want to make sure that y'all understood that from here on out, we will not be seeing subdivision layouts as part of a conditional zoning. We're going to ask for some other changes such as a pre-agenda meeting with the chair and possibly with other people to go over items that are going to be on the agenda so that everybody has a complete familiarity. Each and every one of you is allowed and encouraged to reach out to me during the work week and at other times and ask for explanation on projects you're curious about. Things are moving very fast here. We are finishing up our merger. I'm waiting for a yes, heading from that direction. I had the opportunity this past week to be in Durham at the North Carolina Planning Association's annual conference. And one of the items that was discussed there was the merger of our utilities and how that affects the future. I'm going to say, as the word gets out, that we are going to have sewer capacity through here. Did have an opportunity to take a look at the downtown of Durham, which if y'all haven't been there recently, you definitely need to go through there. Amazing amount of public art. Tattoo parlor right in downtown. It's lovely. Didn't love the lights. Teresa and I had a little time with the bull, so we went for a walk. It was really very refreshing to me to see an awful lot of things that are done differently. We got some great ideas for downtown. Not about a tattoo parlor, but some other ideas about downtown. That's for you. What I was just going to say to you is that I believe as we move forward into the next 12 months, tomorrow is my 6-month anniversary here. But as we move into the next 12 months, I believe you're going to see some very significant changes. I'm very excited about most of them. I do want to remind you all that land use plan that was adopted this year, that's good. And within 5 years, we're going to have to update it again. Did have a moment to speak to the team that put it together for us this last time and gave them a few ideas about what I'd like to see next time. So it is an honor to be here. I would like to finish out my career here. Please do not look at me and think that that's tomorrow morning. Have a good 5 years ahead of me at least. But with you all's help, we're going to move forward. And again, if you have any questions specifically where I'm not explaining something, it's a real good time to throw your hand up and go, yes, sir.
I couldn't wait. Has the volume wastewater capacity been defined with the merger yet?
Well, generally, it's been defined that it is 2 million gallons.
And are we gonna keep our existing plant at 0.75?
That will not be a Pittsboro decision. Sanford is evaluating our plant and determining, I'll say this, that is an option in the merge system, whereas without the merge system, it was not an option. So Sanford is conducting their analysis with their agents, their engineers and so forth. Make some decisions, but they haven't made any as of yet.
And what is the Chatham, I call it the Chatham Park plant, the new one on the east side of town? What is that permitted for? Or maybe a Chuck question.
It's permitted for 500,000 gallons.
Okay.
499.
Thank you.
I do appreciate all the help this evening.
Mm-hmm. Well, congratulations on 6 months.
Yes, sir. Let's hope the next 6 go much smoother.
I'm sure they will. Wow. Any board comments to be brought forward here?
Of course I do, Mr. Chairman.
Please go ahead.
To say I'm a little squirrely, it maybe is an understatement, but I fully respect the need and the demand on the staff, but I'm still squirrely on some of the things we did tonight. Trying to explain that more clarity is approving things that we don't have 100% grasp on.
Mm-hmm.
And it's no disrespect to staff. I fully trust staff in doing what they're doing and what they're going to take to the town board. But we still answer. I know the commissioners answer more and the mayor answers more, but we still answer to to the town, our constituents as well.
Mhm.
And so I just wanted to throw that out there. As much as is possible, I think Ray brought it up tonight. Some of the conditions that you're alluding to and talking about, as much as we can see those before it leaves our desk, so to speak, would be appreciated.
Well, that's a good point, Carl, and maybe it's just a bullet point list such as Teresa gave us earlier. If that were to be submitted, it would be easier to grasp.
Yeah, and I realize it's not possible with everything as much as you guys are doing, day to day with applicants.
Right.
I know that's gonna happen, but as much as we can see it would be.
I think something, a bullet pointed punch list would be very helpful.
Yeah.
Question.
Bill,
Will we at some time be informed of where you went with some of this stuff?
sorry, with conditional items.
Additional items, will they, would ever come back to us to know what happened?
Sorry, the purpose in doing the conditional approval was to give us the opportunity to iron out the last couple of pieces. As this board is advisory and the elected officials make the final decision, I certainly did not want to have to tell somebody that when one twig snapped in the woods, we were going to be heading right back here for yet another round of approvals. What was specifically a concern had to do with, well, you saw the list, Correctional Institute in a residential neighborhood across the street from here. I would be rather surprised to see a prison show up across the street. In fact, I would.
That one down the street.
We already have one right over there. And if people fill that one up, I would like to think we would keep going out further into the woods. And I'm saying, beautiful neighborhood here and the opportunity to bring some hotels, some amenities here that can make this a destination and a conference center, quite similar to what we enjoyed this week in Durham, would be a definite plus. There was I realized the ordinance was written in a way that is broad, but there was an overemphasis on recapping tires and doing major motor overhauls, gas stations all over the place, outdoor kennels. Doesn't seem terribly compatible when you look at the super high density at the urban core of their particular plan. You did see the high rises. I don't think I've ever sat on the 15th floor of a building and looked down into a dog kennel. So, yeah, I don't think it's a compatible use.
Point taken.
The plan would be to negotiate those pieces out and make sure that we have those details ironed out before we end up in front of the Board of Commissioners, as their decision is binding. Yes, sir.
You most likely have a checklist, I would imagine, on things that you're going to be working on.
It's rather loose. At this point, we're still sort of reacting. We are bringing two new staff members on board in the next week. And we only currently I think we had 4 positions open when we first started recruiting, and we're down to 1 opening. So we are filling up our positions quickly. And we are trying to bring in some alternative perspectives, some people who have a little bit more world experience. So we're adding personnel that a little bit more accurately reflects the sort of the full rainbow of what the current population looks more like.
What I'm recalling, Teresa had a great list. She knew exactly what.
Yes, sir.
She had to go on.
Teresa probably was not standing here at this time.
That would be nice if that list came to us on when we had a conditional. That's all I was asking.
Yes. Well, and I will certainly endeavor to do that, but I'm going to say that this particular pair of projects were under negotiation and were being edited while I was eating a hamburger tonight.
Yeah, I understand. I even got a couple calls, but I know where you're at. I'm not complaining about that portion, but as we go into the future,
yes,
it comes up. We could look at that.
Sure.
I think before.
Understood.
And I'll take that under advisement.
One further board comment, and that is I will not be here in November. Vice Chair, Mr. Schaefer will be holding the gavel. And now I'll invite motion to adjourn.